Spirit of God, open our hearts and our minds to your word for us. Then hearing the veil will be lifted, and we will be free. Amen. So all winter in my hubris, I said, wow, I spent the whole winter not getting sick. Bam. Of course, I get sick. So when it comes time for the sign of peace, I'm going to keep my germs to myself and just wave at everybody. But that's why I sound like this. So this past week on Netflix, Sarah Jean and I watched a documentary called Healing. And it was about the power of the mind to heal ourselves emotionally and physically. And they had a bunch of people who had been through some physical problems, some cancer and tumors and also lupus, and who testified to the fact that when they sort of cleared out their minds, and they practiced meditation and prayer and kept their lives positive, the amazing things that happened to their body, the healing that happened. And they backed it up with science and research. Psychologists talked about it, MDs talked about it, the power of a mind. And the fact that the human mind has everything that is needed to heal us, to heal our spirit and to heal our body. And the point of the show is basically keep your life positive, surround yourself with positive energy, and you can be healthier and happier. Your mind has everything that you need to heal anything that happens to you. Now you can look at the gospel today and say, see, Jesus is saying the same thing. Forgive, be kind, be generous to everyone. Don't judge. If you do good things will happen to you. Jesus says today, the measure you measure with will be measured back to you, also known as karma. And these are good ways to live. I'm not saying they're not. Kindness, generosity, forgiveness. And the concept of karma and the golden rule, which is also in today's gospel, do unto others, are in almost every major world religion in one form or another. But there is more to Jesus' message today. You see, Jesus is not a guru or a motivational speaker. The words of his are not simply great ways to live your life. Jesus is not giving us a list of ways to behave to be good people. Jesus was not and is not simply an ethical teacher. Jesus' words and teachings and mission go far, far beyond that. You see, what Jesus is doing in this reading, and from the reading last week, is trying to change how we perceive the world, to reveal God's way of knowing and seeing. You see, for many of us, I would say probably all of us, our default operating system is how do I benefit from this choice I'm going to make? This decision, this situation. And it's completely unconscious. It's not like we're plotting and planning all day long saying, how am I going to get over on other people so that I come out on top? It's usually 99% of the time beneath the surface. It's survival. It's self-preservation in our DNA from 50,000 years ago and beyond. How does this benefit me? How do I survive? How do I come out on top? Now, back in the Stone Age, the point of life was survive. To get the most food, to get the best shelter, to be protected in your clan. And 50,000 years ago, this way of thinking worked. But many of us still operate on these principles. It's still in our DNA. If someone hurts us, or insults us, or takes our power, our instinct is to exert power over them, to even the balance, to make sure that we are not at the bottom of the pecking order. If we give something, we often expect something in return. To be in the good graces of this person, or to be owed back when we are in need. It's survival. Even if it's just feeling good about ourselves in the afterglow of our own generosity, we look for, how does this benefit me? Now, in this gospel today, Jesus is teaching us something deeper than simply how to behave. Jesus is inviting us away from the survival mind, the tribal mind. He is giving us an alternative to the power-seeking mind. You see, the mind that seeks power and survival sees everyone in one of two ways, either as a threat or as an object. If the person is seen as a threat, then I need to conquer them. I need to exert power over them, so I am the alpha because I need to survive. These are people of a different opinion. I got to trump them. I have to do better than them. I have to out-argue them. Person of a different color, a different look. I must survive because they are a threat to me. If a person is seen as an object, then I have to use them and manipulate them for my will and my survival. It seems like this week we are in crisis mode with people who are trapped in the power-seeking survival mind. People whose source of power is their own appetite. The owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft, charged with solicitation. Hundreds of others with him. R. Kelly charged with 10 counts of aggravated sexual assault. Jussie Smollett now charged with making a false police report. Not to mention the betrayal of so many in the Black and LGBTQ communities. And yes, with Mr. Smollett, if he indeed did do this, this was about power. It wasn't just lying, it wasn't just making a false police report. That's the legal infraction. The issue was, it was not seeing that he was connected to so many other people. He was operating on the survival principle. How can I rise up and benefit? How can I separate myself from others by looking like a victim to increase my salary and my popularity? The United States Coast Guard Lieutenant Hassan, was caught by authorities plotting to kill people of different political opinions and different races to, in his own words, create a white homeland. Priests abusing power and victimizing children, thousands and thousands of children and women. And a church covering it up. Why? To preserve power and to survive. There's the survival mind. And all these men abused the power that they had sought. One wanted to eliminate those he saw as less worthy than himself. One chose to lie and betray to increase his power and his net worth. The others victimized people for their own gratification and saw only things, objects, there to fill a need for them. What can I get from them? This is the power-seeking mind, the survival mind. It sees people as a threat to safety or as objects to be exploited. And my sisters and brothers, I tell you this today, this is everywhere. Look around at what is happening in our world. It is hard to miss examples of the survival mind, the power-seeking mind. The teachings of Jesus Christ invite us beyond survival, beyond power. They invite us to see with the spiritual mind. That's what St. Paul is talking about in the letter today. We have to move beyond the physical and move to the spiritual. Adam is of this earth. Christ is of the spirit. We have to move beyond just this realm. Jesus' view of the world is the exact opposite of power and survival. See everyone as sacred, as having worth. Do good, he invites us. Not because it serves you or meets a need in you, but because it's right. And that's how the Spirit views the world. Understand differently is what he's saying. Anyone strikes you on the cheek, give him the other. If someone wants to take your coat away from them, give them your shirt. If anybody takes what belongs to you, don't ask for it back. Lend, not looking for anything in return, even just to feel good about yourself. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what's the big deal? Love your enemies. Do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. For God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked as well. See, Jesus is not just teaching us to act in certain ways, a laundry list of behaviors we can check off to see how good we're doing. It's an invitation to see and understand and perceive everything as God does. But that goes against the rational, earthly mind that looks at things in terms of categories and judgment and power. To see as God sees and to understand that God sees everyone the same. Not our behaviors, but who we are. Means that God sees Coast Guard Lieutenant Hassan and former Cardinal McCarrick and Jussie Smollett and R. Kelly and Robert Kraft the same way that God sees a new mother and father in love with their child. That love him or her with every ounce of their being, completely and unconditionally and unselfishly. That God sees these men the same way He sees those who travel to foreign countries and give a year of their life to build houses and create irrigation systems and teach children, just because it's the right thing to do. God loves and acts with kindness to all people because they are all part of God's Spirit. God sees them as God sees all of us. This way of viewing the world we see in the first reading from this famous story of Joseph. Now, what we heard today in Genesis is the very last part of a very long story. So just to refresh everybody's memory from Sunday school. So Joseph had 11 brothers. They didn't like him very much because he was the favorite. So one day these brothers come up with this scheme. Let's kill him. Let's get rid of him. So they throw him down a well. They put blood all over his multicolored coat, give it to his father Jacob, who wails and grieves and mourns his son. Two of the brothers feel bad, so they pull him out of the well and sell him to some traders going into Egypt. He goes into Egypt and gets, after a long story, gets accused falsely of making a pass at one of the wives of the court officials, gets put in jail, and Pharaoh finds out that he actually can interpret dreams very well. And over a long period of time, Joseph rises in power to become the second in command of all of Egypt after Pharaoh. So Joseph becomes the number 2 guy in the most powerful kingdom in the world of that time. There was a famine. His brothers come into Egypt to find food. And that's where we pick up our story today. Joseph meets them. Joseph had every human right to be angry with them. The betrayal, the hurt, the pain, the years Joseph spent in prison, the years away from his father. Now Joseph had power. A lot of power, where he didn't have any power before. Now he was in a position to even the score. But Joseph didn't. Because what Joseph saw was connection. He saw family, not foreigners. He saw his connection to his brothers. He was even able to recognize God's hand in the whole situation. Joseph was able to see with the spiritual mind, to see how God brought good out of a bad situation. Where many would have seen only the opportunity to exert power for revenge. Now I got you right where I want you. Now you're going to know what it felt like for me. Many people would have done that. But he saw things differently. He and his brothers were blessed, and he was reunited with his father. This invitation of Christ to step out of the power-seeking mind And living the invitation of Christ is not natural for us. We still naturally see through the survival mind, which in the end creates one thing and one thing only, and that's violence. Physical violence, emotional, psychological violence, and spiritual violence. I want you to think of any situation in the world, historically or happening right now, or in your own lives. There's an example of some form of violence. If you trace that far enough back, what you will find is the same thing every time. Someone seeking power. Power over. The invitation of Christ is to step away from power. Leave behind the need to even things out. See differently. The power-seeking mind destroys. It destroys us and it destroys those around us. It brings violence and hurt and betrayal and broken families. See, with the spiritual mind is to forgive. To see separateness as an illusion. Because we're all connected. The spiritual mind is to let go of anger and blame and resentment and jealousy. Do, give, serve, not for yourself, but because of others, because they are children of God also. This mind heals and builds up and brings together. Look around at our world. We need this. We need to step away from the survival and the power mind. We need this in our own lives. On this day, on this morning, Christ invites you to something more. Amen.
Amen.
Let it be so.